Last month, I made a video taking a look at 7 former stars who are now playing at a really low level. Lots of you watched it, lots of you liked it, and lots of you asked for a part 2. And naturally, what with this being the People's Channel and all, I'm all too happy to oblige. As I said in that video, I'm not talking about Mario Balotelli or Kevin Prince Boateng at Monza. I'm not even talking about Wagner Love, who now plays for Kairat in the Kazakhstan Premier League, or Tim Howard, who currently plays for USL Championship side Memphis 1901, who he also happens to co-own. No, I'm looking much further down than that, down into the depths of lower league, non-league, or at least very obscure leagues, to find some familiar faces now plying their trade against players, and indeed teams, most of you will never have heard of. Make sure to check out part 1 either before or after this video if you haven't already watched it, which has a more extensive introduction. But without further ado, here are 7 former stars who now play at a really low level, part 2. Ahmed Musa. Of all the inclusions in both part 1 and part 2 of this series, this was the one that caused me the most trouble to include. So I thought it would be a good place to start. Ahmed Musa is already Nigeria's 3rd most capped player of all time and the Super Eagles' 7th highest goalscorer. Aged 28, Musa ought to be just hitting his prime, whether that be as a left winger or as a centre forward. And yet, there are suggestions that the former CSKA Moscow star's best years may already be behind him. Just 5 years ago, after Leicester City lifted the Premier League title, they made Musa their club record signing for more than £16 million. On his debut at the International Champions Cup, Musa humiliated Barcelona's back line, exhibiting his searing pace by running half the length of the pitch before slotting the ball into the corner of the net. Fox's fans were understandably very excited, but this was to be Musa's finest moment in a Leicester City shirt. He scored just 2 Premier League goals during his debut campaign and failed to register a single assist, as the man who had signed him was sacked not long after his arrival. Following 6 months back on loan in Moscow, where Musa rediscovered his form, he became the most expensive player in the history of the Saudi Pro League, joining Al Nassr for almost £15 million. Musa scored 14 goals in 62 games for Al Nassr before his contract was abruptly terminated last October, reportedly upon Musa's own request. Musa was supposedly keen on a return to Europe, but with nothing having materialised by April, he rejoined his former club, Carno Pillars, last month. In fact, he joined them on the same day that part 1 of this video came out. That move is said to have been a short-term deal so that Musa can maintain his fitness ahead of Nigeria's important World Cup qualifiers. However, despite maintaining his place in Nigeria's squad and his status as national team captain, Musa still hasn't actually played for Carno Pillars since his return, though that may have changed by the time this video comes out. My reluctance to include Musa is due to my newfound love of the domestic game in Africa, and my reluctance to call Nigeria's top flight a really low level. However, the NPFL, as it is known, is not one of Africa's strongest domestic top flights, with only 2 CAF Champions League winners between them. So, given the speed of Musa's fall from being a Premier League title-winning team's record signing to being a bench warmer in Nigeria at the age of 28, I think he's worthy of inclusion. And, evidently, a very lengthy one at that. Morten Gamst Pedersen. You can have your debates in the comments with regards to whether the Nigerian top flight is a really low level or not, but I shouldn't think there will be too many debates about this one. Morten Gamst Pedersen is a sort of Premier League cult hero, if not quite a legend. He spent 9 years at Blackburn Rovers, 8 of which was spent in the Premier League, and he played almost 350 games for the club. For 3 seasons, under Mark Hughes, Blackburn were a really good side, and Pedersen was among their brightest lights. Pedersen became known for his wicked left foot, which was capable of fizzing the ball into the box or thundering it into the back of the net. Whilst it was those goals which took the headlines, it was a more subtle technique that Pedersen really mastered, which involved taking free kicks in wide areas. Pedersen would send what sometimes seemed like innocuous balls headed towards the back post that frequently missed everyone and burrowed into the bottom corner. It seemed accidental, but it was far too frequent an occurrence not to be deliberate, and he is still scoring those goals now, albeit far from the global attention of the Premier League. Pedersen left Blackburn in 2013, a season after the club had been relegated from the Premier League, and moves to Turkey and Rosenborg were followed by a return to his boyhood club, Tromsø. Following 4 seasons back where it all began, Pedersen decided that he still wasn't willing to give football up. He has said that he always aimed to play football until he was 40. He is now 39. Pedersen joined Alta in 2020, who compete in Norway's 3rd tier, in front of a couple of hundred fans for a big game. Pedersen stated in 2020, "I'm so privileged to play the game I love. Why not do it for as long as I possibly can? A football career is so short, so I'm just enjoying the moment. I don't play for money, I just play because I love the game." End quote. Which, I must admit, and as I stated in part 1 of this series, is probably the same attitude that I would have had I been a professional footballer. Ste Mouton Bronc. Another familiar face to followers of the Premier League during the 2000s, Ste Mouton Bronc spent a decade in English football's top flight, either side of another decade playing in Ligue 1. Born in Belgium to French parents, having failed to break into the France team ahead of the likes of Robert Pires and Zinedine Zidane, Mouton Bronc expressed an interest in representing Belgium. The Belgian boss at the time, Ahmed Musa, felt that Mouton Bronc was only interested in playing for Belgium to get back at France, and his advisors told him Mouton Bronc couldn't represent Belgium anyway, so he never called him up. In the end, Mouton Bronc did receive a call-up from France, but he never got on the pitch, meaning he remains uncapped now, aged 41. And whilst he is still playing, the chances of that changing anytime soon seem fairly remote. Mouton Bronc played plenty of football at club level, racking up more than 650 appearances for Lyon, Fulham, Tottenham, Sunderland and St Etienne in the top flights of English and French football. In 2016, aged 36, Mouton Bronc left Lyon for the second time, initially joining fellow Ligue 1 side Caen before dropping down into the 4th tier of French football with Goal FC the following season. Goal FC are based in Lyon and are now managed by former Lyon centre-back Chris. In 2020, Mouton Bronc dropped down another division, joining FC Limonest, who are based in Lyon as well, in France's almost exclusively amateur 5th tier. Ziy Jack. The player with the single most enjoyable name tier pronounced by the FIFA video game commentators, for many years, Ziy Jack provided a rare spark during a bleak period for the once great Hungarian national team. It is a shame in many respects that Ziy Jack's retirement from international football coincided with an uptick in the national team's fortunes and the rise of 1 or 2 players he would no doubt have loved to have played alongside. With 21 goals from 108 caps for the Central Europeans, Ziy Jack is tied with pyjama-donning former Crystal Palace goalkeeper Gabor Krai as the nation's most capped player of all time. At club level, Ziy Jack never actually played in one of Europe's Big 5 leagues, as per UEFA's coefficient rankings, despite often being held in very high regard. His best years were probably spent with PSV, where Ziy Jack scored 24 goals from the left flank in a single season during his final campaign, before linking up with the likes of Roberto Carlos and Samuel Eto'o at free-spending Anji Makachkala. That house of cards soon came crashing down, as I covered in my Anji Makachkala documentary a while back, and Ziy Jack later enjoyed stints at Dynamo Moscow, Bursaspor, and in the Middle East. He returned to Hungary in 2020, aged 33, joining his boyhood club Debrecen in Hungary's 2nd tier. That is where Ziy Jack plays now, but had I made this video next season, he wouldn't have featured, since Debrecen will be back in the top flight. Ziy Jack had an important impact upon their promotion with 4 goals and an incredible 15 assists from just 28 outings. Perhaps Hungary could do a lot worse than recalling him for the Euros. Matt Jarvis. Right, I won't be tolerating any Matt Jarvis slander down below in the comments. Yes, he was a star, and yes, he does now play at a low level. And for those of you chuckling at that suggestion at the back, I'll have you know that Matt Jarvis won more caps for England than 3-time European Cup winner Jimmy Case and 3-time Premier League champion Steve Bruce combined. He was once the player of the season at a Premier League team, and former Wolves boss Mick McCarthy once described him as having more talent than Rivaldo ever had just in his little toe. And if you still don't believe me, I only had to make one of those facts up. Born in Middlesbrough to two professional table tennis players who met on the table tennis circuit, and until now I didn't even realise there was a table tennis circuit in England, Jarvis made his name with Gillingham and Wolves. Quick, tricky, and capable of cutting in off the left flank and planting the ball into the back of the net with his favoured right foot, Jarvis joined Premier League side Norwich City in 2015. Towards the end of the season, Jarvis picked up an injury that would rule him out for the entirety of the following campaign, and he never played for the Canaries again. Following more than 6 months without a club, Jarvis joined non-league Woking a little over a year ago. Now aged 34, Jarvis has since played 25 times for the semi-professional Minnows, who have never played league football and currently occupy 20th place in the National League table. Roman Pavlyuchenko. In December 2011, Roman Pavlyuchenko received the ball on the half-turn and fired the ball into the bottom left-hand corner past Kieran Westwood in the Sunderland goal. Pavlyuchenko ran towards the Spurs fans, pointed at the back of his shirt, and declared, "Remember the name." Well, it's good news, Roman, because I haven't forgotten the name. If you watch a highlights reel of some of Roman Pavlyuchenko's goals and best moments in a Tottenham shirt, you could be forgiven for thinking that he was like a cross between Fernando Torres and Dimitar Berbatov. Tall, quick feet, he could turn a defender, hit the ball with either foot, and he could score many different types of goals. The problem was, Pavlyuchenko just didn't do it nearly often enough. In his defence, he rarely got a consistent run of games under Harry Redknapp, who seemingly never took to him, supposedly in part due to his poor English skills. In truth though, the £15 million Russian marksman was remarkably frustrating. Largely ineffective when not scoring goals, he tended to amble around the pitch, only coming to life in flickering moments. What's more, just 6 months after he signed for Spurs, Pavlyuchenko told the press that he would love to play for Manchester United, less than a week before Tottenham met Manchester United at Wembley in the League Cup final. Pavlyuchenko was substituted in that game after 65 minutes, and Spurs lost on penalties. Following 42 goals in 113 games in North London, Pavlyuchenko returned to Russia in January 2012 with Lokomotiv Moscow. In 2017, he dropped down into Russia's third tier with Ararat Moscow, a club set up by Moscow's Armenian community, which was founded in 2017 and dissolved in 2020. For the last 3 years, Pavlyuchenko has flip-flopped between Ararat and Znamya Noginsk in Russia's semi-professional third and amateur fourth tiers, currently starring for the latter, which certainly constitutes a very low level. The 39-year-old has also been in and out of politics over the years, supporting Vladimir Putin's United Russia Party in Stavropol's local Duma. Djibril Cisse. An absolute peach of a top spot, I'm not quite sure whether Djibril Cisse actually plans to play much football for his new club, but it's an interesting development nonetheless. Like Ahmed Musa's return to his boyhood club in Nigeria, this is a deal that was struck almost exactly when part 1 of this video was released. Djibril Cisse is probably best known to most of our viewers for his 3 years with Liverpool, where he won the Champions League in 2005, along with his brief stints back in the Premier League at Sunderland and Queen's Park Rangers. Cisse, it should be added, was one of only 5 players to actually score in the 2005 Champions League final penalty shootout, as the likes of Andrea Pirlo, Andrei Shevchenko and John Arne Riise all failed to convert. Though that is what he is best known for in England, Cisse actually enjoyed his finest form in France and Greece, where he scored prolifically for both Panathinaikos and Auxerre. Cisse was absolutely adored on the green side of Athens, where he scored 55 goals in 89 games in just 2 seasons. A decade on from leaving the Greek Giants in controversial circumstances, which were covered in my documentary about corruption within the Greek game, Cisse has reportedly joined Panathinaikos once again, but not Panathinaikos in Athens. No, in April 2021, it was reported that Cisse had signed for Panathinaikos Chicago, who are, as their name would suggest, based in Chicago, Illinois. Aged 39, Cisse hasn't actually played professionally for a couple of years, and one suspects he won't be playing professionally if he does actually end up playing for Panathinaikos Chicago as well. The brand new club, run by Greek immigrants to the United States, was only founded during the 2020 coronavirus pandemic. They have subsequently set about supposedly signing a number of professional players, having agreed a kit manufacturing deal with sports brand Hummel, and received admission to join the National Premier Soccer League next season. Of course, US soccer doesn't have promotion or relegation, but the NPSL is widely considered to be equivalent to the fourth tier of football in the United States. Miami FC are the league's reigning champions, who are managed by Kenny Dalglish's son and are owned by Ricardo Silva, George Mendes' business partner, who will be a familiar name to those of you who watch my video about how football's innumerable award ceremonies have become pointless at best and totally corrupt at worst. Anyhow, that is it for part 2 of this series. I suspect it will be the final part, but who knows? It's a strange old world. Thank you all as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for the one and only HITC Sevens. Oh, and you can also find me on social media, on Twitter or Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.